Well, here we are live again to bring back the Sherman Schnitzel Sunday, but our buddy Trent is a little bit tied up at the moment, so we are just going to cut right into this with the new Big 12 on the rise. This season is important for anybody in the new Big 12, especially Oklahoma State, in my opinion. So let's talk a little bit about why this season is big.
You are Locked On Oklahoma State, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma State Cowboys. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Howdy, y'all, and hello, all. Welcome back to Locked On Oklahoma State Live Edition, which we're going to start doing a lot more often, which is why I wanted to kind of kick this off before the season gets going. Y'all remember Sherman Schnitzel Sunday? We had a few episodes, and we're definitely going to bring that back. So, welcome back on the show once again, Jason Sherman. What's up, buddy?
What up?
Well, all right, man. We'll get right into it since Trent is too cool for school at the moment. We've had several conversations about Oklahoma State, right? And at one point in time during the offseason, there was enough going on to make you at least question, well, what are we really going to look like? Well, we got to give the coaching staff kudos because they delivered with this transfer class. This transfer class looks like it's going to be, I don't want to say a savior per se, but I guess in some aspects you could say that. So in your opinion, Jason, what has shifted perception-wise, opinion-wise, from the beginning of the end of the offseason until now?
I just think it's so hard, particularly now in the NIL and the transfer portal era, to even really get a grasp on what most teams are going to be from a year in and year out basis, outside of the guys that are recruiting the 5 stars, and a lot of those guys will leave too, but outside of like your Ohio States, Alabamas, Texas's, you don't really know what your team's going to look like from year to year. So it's going to have to, and Gundy's done a very good job over his tenure, and his coaches have done a very good job of finding those diamonds in the rough. So maybe it's going to be a little easier for them to recruit and find these guys that have some game film and some tape to be able to go get these guys that can plug and play instantaneously.
Do you think there's ever going to get a time where they finagle this thing around to where people do care a little bit more about going to one university for years and years and years? Or do you think this transfer market is exactly what it is and this is how it's going to stay?
Well, it's the wild, wild west right now until there's some sort of a regulation and a stipulation on it. I know they re-implemented that 2 transfer rule and you guys set out, but it's the wild, wild west when a guy like Spencer Sanders has been here for 4 years and he can just, for no apparent reason, up and walk away. To a lesser degree, a girl like Kelly Maxwell in our softball program tells the coaching staff she's coming back and then waits till her coach is on vacation and then says, I'm going to go play for our actual in-state rival. Something's got to be done about it. Some stipulations got to be put back to it. There needs to be, in my opinion, there needs to be an actual reason why you just up and leave, especially when we are paying these players a little bit of money. So until that happens, I just think that we're in for a wild ride.
Man, I think it's unfortunate, right? I think even all this realignment stuff, which we're going to get to in a few minutes here, it's not necessarily good for the game, but the embracing of it, I think, is kind of important, not only from a coaching staff, but from the guys above the coaching staff as well, the presidents, the chancellors, the ADs. And it seems as though the Big 12 has a pretty good pulse on exactly what that's going to be. But Oklahoma State specifically, I think, is in a good spot, which is why I say this season is massively beneficial to anybody, right? Anybody in this conference right here, right now, whoever has the opportunity to play in Arlington, I think is going to get a little bit of from a marketing standpoint, maybe a leg up in this new Big 12. The recruiting landscape is going to change, but I also think that there's going to be less food at the ready, right? So I do think recruiting is going to wash itself out because there's not going to be people going to Washington States and Oregon States as much anymore if they do not have a seat at the table. So although recruiting is going to get more difficult, I do think that it'll be spread out enough that we'll still be able to all feast, right? We'll all still be able to eat pretty daggone good in the new Big 12. But would you agree that this season's kind of more important now than it was before all these new teams got brought in?
Probably so. With OU and Texas still in the league, the nightmare scenario for the conference is for those two to play in Arlington, right? That's the nightmare scenario.
Yeah.
There's that possibility. There's a possibility. The greater possibility is for one of them to be there, right? So I'm looking more towards your scenario towards next year of getting a jump on the actual new Big 12. But for Oklahoma State, with this new era of NIL and the transfer portal, guys like Arlen Bruce, guys that have come in from different universities, need to make an immediate impact. And we need to show the rest of the players in the country, hey, you can come here from another institution and you can plug and play and have immediate success at a place like Oklahoma State and elevate your brand to either get you more NIL money from Oklahoma State or raise your draft stock to where you can go and play at the next level.
Well, I'd say playing at the next level is clearly the objective for most of these young men. And you know what? Just before we even do get to the new Big 12 side of things, that's something that we'll get to in a minute. I do want to talk about that. When it comes to Colorado, people can throw as much shade as they want, but Deion Sanders is going to be able to recruit. And the new adaptation of the Big 12 is going to give teams like that a really good leg up. So I think the argument can also be made on the other side of the coin. Whoever capitalizes on the Pac-12 this season is going to be in a better position moving forward, right? Like just like nobody really wants to see OU and Texas playing for the Big 12 title this year. That would be a disastrous scenario. You're 100% right. If it's Red River for their very last Big 12 title run, I think that would be terrible for the conference. It would be terrible for perception for sure. Now, on the other side of the coin, it's same in the Pac-12. If USC wins the Pac-12 this year, right, it'll be everybody saying, oh, okay, Utah was a fluke. But if Utah wins it again, I think it adds validity to them coming into the new Big 12. So that's, again, why I say it's important this year. But the biggest question is, do you think, with what we know now, we can dive into kind of transfer if you want to. That's probably a pretty good segue. But out of the transfers that we have now, do we have enough talent to get it done? Or do you think we're still playing for a shot at like a 10, 11 win season? I mean, not that if you win 11 wins, you're probably going to Arlington. Fair?
Probably so. There's just, on a normal year, I would probably say yes, but there's a couple of unknowns right now. You do have 4 brand new teams in this conference this year, and BYU has had success. Cincinnati has had success. I know they're going through some transition. Central Florida has had success, and they have a national championship winning coach down there that put a staff together to come to a Power 5 conference and try to compete.
Yeah.
So outside of the normals, the Oklahomas, the Kansas States, the TCUs, which took a few hits, Oklahoma State, you have to factor in some of that stuff too. I don't know that Houston can be much of a factor right off the bat. I don't think Dana White even said as much in a press conference right after they were to join the league, but there's a few unknowns there. And I don't think that it is the nightmare scenario for the immediate impact of what people would say. Oh, the SEC took the 2 best teams out of that conference. It's proven they played the conference championship. But our granted rights runs through like 2031. So there's plenty of time for the Big 12 to right that ship and go make some noise in a playoff, maybe get back to a college football national championship game. If you can have a couple of different teams, say an Oklahoma State, a Kansas State, and a Utah in that time frame can go have a little bit of success in the college football playoff, I think that will bode well for the conference.
Absolutely.
Because what are we planting our flag on, right? The SEC and the Big Ten are very top heavy. The Big 12 is going to plant their flag on. You can tune in to any game, any Saturday, and it's going to be a competitive game across the board. Houston, West Virginia can jump up and bite anybody. Iowa State is just as good as Utah or Arizona State, and that's going to be what we plant our flag on. And it wouldn't surprise me if we see 5 or 6 or 7 different champions over the next 10 years in this conference. Wouldn't surprise me at all.
Somebody put that out the other day. I wish we could give them their kudos, but yeah, no, that's a very interesting point.
Sure.
And I find it very viable, which is, again, right. I think we're just throwing more ammo at this situation here, which is another reason why I think this is a massive season for Oklahoma State. I think the schedule sets us up to be good, right? If the offensive line is as deep as we've been in the last 7 to 8 years on an easy basis, especially from a depth perspective, and we can get that 4.5, 4.6 yards a carry, which I firmly believe we will, brother man. I think we have a 1,000-yard rusher this season. The question is, who's it going to be? Is it going to be Elijah Collins? Is it going to be Ollie Gordon? I think that would be the common consensus, but you never know. Injuries are going to happen. That's the beauty, I guess you could say, of the running back position nowadays. It's a little more undervalued, especially at the NFL level, than possibly ever before. But at the same time, you need 3 or 4 dudes. You absolutely need 3 or 4 running backs. We have that. But if we get dinged up at running back, it could become an interesting season.
Well, and for the longevity of a guy like Ollie Gordon, because he's a young player, and hopefully he'll stick around for a couple seasons. For the longevity of a player like him, it would be fantastic if he could run for like 12 or 1,300 yards, and Elijah Collins could add on another 800 or 900. You don't have to have that one guy that has the Chuba Hubbard season. You don't have to have the single bell cap, right? You got 3 guys that are very capable. They bring different things and different scenarios to the program. So if you look up at the end of the season and Ollie Gordon's a 12, 13, 1,400 yard rusher, Elijah Collins is nipping on the door of 1,000 yards, and Nixon's, right there, 600, 700, 800 yards. I mean, that kind of success, you're going to look at the record and it's going to have a 9 or a 10 in front of it.
100%. Bro, hey, you brought up a couple of the transfers and how, it's kind of, unfortunately, the way of the world now, right? So let's go over some of the transfers that we've had before we move over and to talk about exclusively the new Big 12. So if you look at the cornerback position, right, we lost Jabbar Muhammad. We brought in Kenneth Harris. We also brought in a guy I am absolutely in love with, and Ladarius Webb Jr. Ladarius Webb was pretty much too physical to play cornerback, so he's been slid over to the safety position. But when you look at Kenneth Harris Jr., right, he's one of those transfer guys. And then you look over, let's say, the defensive line. We brought in Anthony Goodlow, 4-star. Transfer from Tulsa. We also brought in Justin Wright, a linebacker from Tulsa who had over 230 tackles in the last 2 years. Yeah,
he's a dude.
He's absolutely insane. You got DeJon Stribling at wide receiver. You got Leon Johnson III at wide receiver. You got Arlen Bruce, who you just mentioned, also at wide receiver. Whenever you think of some of those guys, and then obviously Elijah Collins, a running back, out of that group right there, I guess you could throw in Josiah Johnson and Ian Edenfield in that group. But anywho, who do you think at the end of the season that we look back and say these 2 transfers were integral parts of our success in 2023? If you could just pick 2, what are the 2 guys you think at the end of the year we say, thank goodness we got them and they were ready right away?
Elijah Collins and Justin Wright. Because we have
I like it.
We have a huge need, right? So going back to the 21 season, we had a guy that's now playing in the NFL, playing inside linebacker. And then we have a kid that goes to USC, so we're decimated at that position. We have a kid that transfers, we're decimated at that position. So we need somebody to stabilize that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? We need somebody to stabilize the middle, and then if Elijah Collins can nip on the heels of 1,000 yards, we're going to be in really, really good shape. And that kind of keeps some tread on the tires, so to speak, for the future of Ollie Gordon.
Well, and Elijah wants that because he ran for 988 yards in Michigan State. He got so close to that 1,000-yard mark, and then Kenneth Walker happened, right? And nobody can be mad at that.
COVID happened, really. I mean, COVID happened. Kenneth Walker took his opportunity and ran with it, and you can't fault the guy. You can't really fault the program. You got an absolute superstar. I mean, that stuff happens all the time. Terrell Davis took somebody's spot at some point too, but it's Terrell Davis. You know what I'm saying?
100%, man.
Right.
Yeah. No, I really like those choices. I think since you went Elijah Collins, it gives me a little bit of freedom here. I think I'm going to go DeJon Stribling for sure. His wiggle is absolutely impressive. I texted you yesterday, right?
Yep.
So far, it's just spring and only a couple days into fall, right? So it's a small sample size. But if I were to put a judgment on him, I would say that he's a little bit bigger and stronger version of Brennan Presley. Right. Whenever, you saw what he did at Washington State, I didn't know that he was going to be an instantaneously productive dude, but I very much see it. I like what Arlen Bruce provides, especially out of the backfield. But for my number 2 guy, I didn't mention Justin Kirkland. Wet Blanket just did, so I can't go that route because that would almost be cheating. So I think, honestly, man, for my other guy, I got to go, man. I'm going to say Ladarius Webb Jr. he's going to rotate a lot, and we're very, very deep at the safety position. So it is going to be a little bit more of a complex way that we get him into the game. But nonetheless, dude, I think he's so talented. And the fact that we moved him to safety is a good indication on where we are. I covered cornerbacks in the show yesterday. We're pretty square away with the cornerback position, just like the safety position. So it'll be one of those instances where you may not get a lot of PT, but the opportunities that you're going to be able to have, I think he's one of those guys who will capitalize.
But the wide receivers that came in the offseason, that's a very important group right there because we lost so much returning. We don't have hardly any returning productivity outside of Brennan Presley, right?
Right.
We lost a lot of experience and a lot of players that contributed to Oklahoma State over a long period of time to the transfer portal. I'm devastated that we lost Boog. I thought he was going to be one of the all-time greats at Oklahoma State. And so if some of these guys can produce a little bit, and, what have we talked about all summer long? The safeties and the back end of our defense is going to be one of the strengths, right?
Yeah.
And
right.
For all indications, these new receivers are holding their own and showing out a little bit in some of these practices. I've seen some highlights. There's some really spectacular catches. They look really athletic, and they're battling. They're battling. They're winning their fair share of those battles too.
Well, all right, buddy. All right, real quick, and then we're going to roll into obviously the new Big 12, right? Real quick, I do got to let the fine people out here know, as you saw, just popped up. In today's hiring market, it is a complete crapshoot on what the quality of the candidates look like. So make sure you do yourself a favor and use LinkedIn.com. Go there right now, LinkedIn.com/LockedOnCollege, to make sure that you are getting the best candidates for your job at the right time, and you can post your job for free today. There's a major reason why small businesses say that LinkedIn is number one compared to all of their top competing brands. So do yourself a favor, get the right candidate at the right time, post your job for free at LinkedIn.com/LockedOnCollege. Go there now. Of course, terms and conditions do apply. All right, buddy. So now we get into the next bag of cookies here, which is going to be the new Big 12. We've been having this conversation for quite some time. It's nice to see it finally done. Whenever you heard, even the other day, right, we all woke up and we were having the conversation, right? People like John Canzano are sitting there talking about how, the Pac-12 is going to survive, right? Whenever this was getting shoved down our throats all the time, over and over and over, did you think it was all smoke and mirrors? Or did you think there was some chance the Pac was going to survive?
I don't know. I went to bed Thursday night, and Arizona was supposedly a done deal, right? Like it was all but a formality. Arizona State and Utah were still kind of up in the air. There was some reports out there that Arizona State was on board, but they wanted to see that last ditch effort on Friday morning. Well, then I wake up Friday, and at 6:20 Pacific time, Ross Dillinger's putting tweets out there saying, "Oh, there's a big chance these teams are leaning back towards the Pac-12. They're going to sign the grant of rights this morning." And apparently, what I heard is that they were going around the round room with all the presidents and ads, and it got to a point, and Oregon was kind of like, "Excuse me, I have to say something. Yeah, we're leaving," and basically got up and left the meeting. So I don't know. It was a wild time. I think so. We've been talking about this for months, specifically about the 4 corner schools, right?
Right.
As soon as we added the 4 group of 5 schools, the 3 Americans and the independent BYU, the second that was a done deal, you and I and our whole group of Oklahoma State fans have been talking about the next step, obviously, is the 4 corner schools. Right. And for months and months, we've been told how wrong we are. We've been told how stupid we are. You truck stop loser rednecks. No team from the Pac-12 is ever going to the Big 12.
Yeah.
And we were 1,000% right.
Well, and, we can get on to the sanctimonious Utah type of scenario. And you brought up an interesting point about that as well. Somebody in the comment section, Dustin, just asked if DeAndre Jackson is still with us. No, technically not. He had a pretty big injury pop up. So, yeah, he unfortunately will not be able to participate this season. Now, we do have some young guys. I don't know if Sesi Lelehe is going to be ready immediately. I definitely don't think so. but he could be.
But if
right?
we got to dip to that part of the depth chart, though, that means there's been a major injury, right?
Correct.
That means that one of those three guys is not getting any reps.
Well, and then I would be interesting to kind of see what the Buckner situation is. Obviously, his brother, right? Buckner, we have one on the safety side, and then we also have offensive guy. He came in, transferred from Arkansas. I would be kind of intrigued to see how the development is going to go on him. But, yeah, man, running back is going to be key. All right, as for the new Big 12, we've had conversations almost ad nauseum, right, in regards to the original four. And how cool is that to say out of your mouth now if you're a UCF fan or a BYU fan or a Cincinnati fan, you know what I mean, or even a Houston fan.
If you can call these the new guys.
Yeah, right.
The new guys. Yeah.
To be on the other side of the coin, right? They were the new Big 12, and now they're sitting back and their recliners like, this is nice. This is nice to invite the new guys, right?
For sure.
Before a game's even played. So
it was kind of funny to see some of those fan bases on Twitter throwing shade to Arizona and Arizona State fans and all, and Colorado fans and saying, I don't know if we want you, or I don't know if you're Power 5 worthy or blah. It was pretty funny. It was pretty funny.
No, it's great. Okay, so we talked a little bit earlier. We mentioned Colorado, and when you think of Colorado, I know me and you both have had conversations about the old Big 8 days and things of that nature. But whenever you think about Colorado, do you think that they're able to cause some problems in the Pac-12 this year instantaneously, or do you think that it's going to take them a while to get rolling?
It's the same adjective with every team that's trying to make their come up, right? They're probably going to be lacking in the trenches, the big boys up front on both sides of the ball. That might be their downfall. Can they win 6 games and get to a bowl game? I think 100% yes, just by the cultural change, the overall attitude. And they did bring in some dudes, right? And I'm really glad you brought up Colorado, because I was going to say this earlier. Colorado is the perfect example of an institution that is down and out with their football program. They're a very proud football program over history, but they've had a rough stretch here. The Pac-12 experience was not a positive one for them. They went to one conference championship game, and then they played us. The one season they go to a bowl game, they play us and we wax them. I'm glad they're back, but that goes to show you that even though you're not having the immediate success on the field, if you're one of those type of programs that has the capability of winning a national championship, which they are because they have.
Yeah.
If you invest money, time, and some forethought into your football program, the big media market or the big media networks will find you valuable. And that's exactly what they did. They went and got some transfers. They got Dion. Look, there's been the talk outside of conference realignment. The only news you've heard all summer long about college football is Deion Sanders at Colorado.
He fills up the radio waves and the eyeballs quite a bit. Yeah.
Yep.
Well, and like we've had talk because you're a Broncos fan. I happen to live in this area, right? And you did hear for a long time that Colorado fans or there's some people in Colorado that didn't want to be in the Big 12 and this and that and the other. I always thought the fan base around here was pretty excited about the idea. And from what I've seen, especially from the Colorado fan base, is they're excited to be back because they want football to be important again. And now that Deion's there, they have a reason for football to be important again. So this is a good time. It's a really good time for them. And I'm excited to see where Colorado goes. And I know you have a limited amount of time because you got.
Oh, we're good. I got a little bit of time. We're good.
Okay.
The thing about Colorado is, and a lot of those Pac schools, the reason I think it kind of took a little bit of time for this all to maturate is because there is a fundamentally morally different train of thought between Cal Berkeley and Oklahoma State. There just is. They're just two different ways of life, right? In a place like Colorado, and I think Arizona and Utah to an extent, you've got a fan base that wants to be passionate about their sports, right? Especially Arizona with basketball. Utah had a lot of success in football.
Yeah.
And the fan bases want to be competitive. They want to be relevant. Well, then you have a set of holier than thou higher up people that make the actual decisions for the universities that have a different train of thought. So you've got a fan base that's rabid, and they wouldn't care if they're playing on the moon or on Mars. They're going to go pack the stadium, right? And they don't care who they're playing. They could be playing Saudi Arabia, and they're going to show up and play, right?
Yep.
So, but then you have people making the decisions on where these teams play and what they do, and it was just a weird dynamic. And I'm hoping that with Utah, Arizona State, Arizona specifically, because those were the three that I think had some reservations in coming over to the Big 12. I think I hope over the length of this grant of rights that they learn to love what we've got going on in the Big 12 and figure out that we're pretty good people. Like, it's going to be fun, and let's make some money, let's win some ball games, and let's have fun.
Yeah, man. There has to be something to be said about loving the game that much, or just loving the experience. And I do think that a lot of these fan bases, for as pretentious as they may act sometimes, I think whenever they do come experience everything, it is going to change a lot of perceptions. All right, so to continue into this, I had mentioned earlier that I found it kind of ironic that Utah went through the situation that they did after throwing their nose up at the Big 12 and repeatedly talking about how they didn't want to be in the Big 12 and it was this and that and the other type of conference. Well, now what you're seeing is a bunch of Utah fans talk about how they're going to run the conference. Like, they didn't even have that little period of, oh, we're gracious, this is nice to be in here, we cannot wait. It's instantaneously, well, I guess we're in the Big 12, it's a conference we're going to run now. How fun is that, right? Texas Tech is supposed to be our next rival, naturally. Yes, of course. And you had a Twitter space yesterday. By the way, buddy, you did a phenomenal job. And there was a lot of Utah fans on there that were very sensible, that were very reasonable. So clearly we know it's not all of them. But as soon as I get off of that Twitter space, I'm still seeing Utah fans talking about how they're going to run stuff and how easy it's going to be. And there's even people saying they wish they would have gotten a harder conference. Dude, everybody's going to be chomping at the bit to play Utah. Do you think that they are going to supplant a lot of people as a new rival? Or other than BYU, who do you think kind of draws the ire of Utah the most?
I think everybody at this point in the conference is going to have some disdain towards Utah, right? But some of those aren't going to maturate into rivalries. Like, if West Virginia gets waxed 4 times in a row, and I'm just using some examples, if Kansas gets, waxed 7 out of the first 10 years they play them, it's not really a rivalry, right? But a team like an Oklahoma State or a Kansas State that can go in there and shut their mouth a little bit, like go to Salt Lake City and kick the door down and tell them to shut up, daddy's home, and make it a real rivalry, then I think – so that was one thing that I always kind of didn't like about our situation as Oklahoma State in general, is we really have only ever had one rival, right? You can say Tulsa's rival, whatever. We don't play them very much. We've really only ever had one rival, and it's Oklahoma. We hinged all of our passion and all of our hatred towards one team in one weekend, right? But a lot of teams have multiple rivals, like Oklahoma had us and Texas. Alabama has Auburn and Georgia. Georgia has Florida and Tennessee. Like, they have some other rivals, right?
Right.
So I think Utah maybe won't be our main rival, like that we play on rivalry weekend, because I think that's Texas Tech. But I think Utah could shape up to be one of those nasty kind of like really good competitive games year in and year out. And
right,
you circle that one every year when it gets put on your schedule.
It'll be fun, man. And I hope that whenever they do get the experience of that dose of you can shut the hell up,
right?
I hope that their fan base is at least reasonable enough to kind of take a step back and realize that there's a big difference between playing the week in, week out schedule of the Big 12 as opposed to the Pac-12. And I do know that people right now want to talk about the Pac-12 might be deep this year because they've got some quality quarterbacks, so on and so forth. I just, it's almost the same argument to me that the Big 12 used to get slammed for, right, from SEC. Well, they don't know how to play defense, so on and so forth.
Right.
The Pac-12, I think that the two deeps and the situations there, it's gonna be a little bit of a slap in the face. And I think somebody like Dion gets that.
Just kind of backtrack for a second about Utah. So if they do come in and quote unquote run the Big 12, right, they're gonna they're going to be trendsetters. It's going to go down in the history books because no team has left a Power 5 conference for a Power 5 conference and really had much success, right? So maybe they're going to be Neil Armstrong of the college football world and make history and do something nobody's ever done before, like stepping on the moon, because that's what it would be like, them coming in and run this conference. I just don't think that they understand what they're coming into. Like, they don't understand that Kansas State or that Iowa State will whip your ass on any given Thursday, Friday, or Saturday you play them up in Ames, Iowa. They don't understand that.
Hey, you see this comment here, David Floyd? It's that's the point, Dave. It's going to be the Xerox U Bowl or something to that effect.
Hey, buddy, all I want to say to Dave is our mascot is imaged after a human being, a real individual, and yours is Yosemite Sam. So calm down, bud.
See, it's why it's perfect, man. Speaking of tech, we can talk about all of the Big 12. You know the drill there. You know how high I am on their quarterback room. I'm a big believer in Baron Morton, massive believer in Baron Morton. I do think Tyler Shuck is a pretty daggone good quarterback. He was able to have success in the Pac-12. Whenever he is able to play on a Texas Tech field, we might know something about that after the season. But playing good on the field and staying healthy have been a problem for him. I am kind of okay with not playing Texas Tech this season, right? We avoid Tech. We don't play Texas. And I'll say I'm kind of happy about it. Texas Tech is going to be a problem, which is primarily why I think it's imperative that we capitalize this season, because Texas Tech's going to be a problem. BYU is going to continue to be a problem. Utah coming in is a problem. So all the Pac-12 people out there, don't let USC win the Pac-12 title, and don't let Utah win the Pac-12 title. So that way the argument is a lot more divvied up. All right, buddy. Sure. I know you've got important stuff to do, so you got to skedaddle on out of here in a bit. Before we get on off of here, I do want to ask, I put out a Twitter poll a little bit earlier, so I'm going to ask you this question. Out of these four teams, who do you think wins a Big 12 title first? BYU, Utah, UCF, or Texas Tech?
You had to throw in one of the original Hateful Eight, didn't you?
Well,
you had to do it, man.
Okay, so if Tech's your choice there, we can.
I don't know if it is, but okay. I will say Tech, because they are going to be good this year, and I don't think one of the new teams is coming off the bat and winning the conference championship, especially with Oklahoma and Texas still here. Had Utah been in the league this year as opposed to next year, that might have been my choice, because they're going to be really good this year.
I know.
They're stacked. They've been to 2 straight Rose Bowls, won the Pac-12 2 straight times. They're going to be really good. So I'll say Texas Tech, because they might get one this year.
Ooh.
They might.
Ooh.
They might.
Well, dude, they're definitely going to make it interesting.
Wouldn't
Yeah,
that be
like
dope?
I said, man.
Wouldn't that be dope if it was the Dust Bowl in Arlington? That would be dope.
I'd be down for it, man. I would absolutely be down for it. And momentum, it does matter. And what Joey McGuire has there is a lot of momentum going, not only from a recruiting perspective, not only from an excitement perspective, but, dude, they're investing money. Their NIL game is pretty legitimate, and their new stadium upgrades are going to be pretty daggone fun to see as well.
They do it for the brand, Cody. That's their new slogan. They do it for the brand. Who copied who? Who copied who? Whoever.
Yeah, they went back to the non-bevel Texas Tech logo, I guess. I love the beveling logo for Texas Tech, but they've gone back to that old school TT brand.
Doing it for the brand, Cody.
That's right. All right, buddy. Well, hey, I'll let you skedaddle on out of here, but before you do, please let the people out here know about your hiatus, of course, and how they can find you and all that fun jazz, buddy.
I don't do a whole lot of social media stuff. I am on Twitter. Go catch me at Cowboy Image. We do Twitter Spaces on the regular. A lot of them are Oklahoma State focused, but we will shift gears and talk about anything in the Big 12. Any fan base, hop on. If you see me, Cody, or Trent doing a space, we like to chop it up. We talk about stuff. We don't We don't get into a whole bunch of screaming matches. We just like to talk about football. So excited for the new Big 12, excited for the new Big 12. And I just can't wait to see what happens in the future moving forward. I appreciate it, Cody.
Absolutely, brother, man. All right, you go do your important stuff, boss man. I appreciate you.
We'll do it again next Sunday.
Absolutely. Yes, sir.
Go.
Later, bud.
See you, bud.
All right, well, while Jason goes and does important things with his life, we'll stay on here for a little bit. So if anybody has any questions, comments, concerns, go ahead and fire away in there, and I'll get to you. But yeah, just to kind of expound a little bit on the conversation that we were having. I think it's fun that Utah's already bumping their gums a little bit. I do think that they're definitely going to get a nice little dose of reality when they come in the conference. Not that they're going to be not talented enough, right? Talent is not going to be a concern. But are they going to be able to stay relevant every single week and injury-free? I think most of the teams that are currently in the league, as well as the teams coming into the league, the new four and the new four, are going to have first strings that are going to be ultra competitive, right? That just the name of the game is speed, athleticism. And a lot of these universities recruit enough of that to be very successful, right? You see it in bowl games all the time. Traditionally speaking, you do see that the depth and everything shines through at the end of the game, which is why they call it for a 4-quarter game. A lot of teams can stay close at the first half, and then typically you see a little bit of the depth shine through at the end because the physicality is different. It's the same reason people up-talk the SEC forever, and it was fair. It was true. They were more physical. They did recruit those guys for a specific reason. And after doing so and marketing it that way for so long, if you were a big dude and you were very, very, very skilled, you're likely going to put yourself in a position to play for an Alabama or a Georgia type of club. Whenever you look at this new Big 12, there's going to be a lot of people, first strings, that can compete with almost anybody. I do see it taking a little bit of time. BYU is a little bit different. Now, for the Utah fans, feel free to hop in here and say whatever you feel like you can. But the depth is going to matter. You are not going to be able to rely strictly on getting lucky on a 24/7 basis, and you don't have get-right games. So if you have a short week, God forbid you play on a Thursday or a Friday after playing on a Saturday, everything changes for your starting lineup. So if you have dudes that need a little bit of extra time in the therapy room, need a little bit extra time, with the ankle type and all of that fun jazz, it does matter. It will add up. And that's why we always talked a lot of shade in the Big 12 about how the SEC does a lot of this, it does a lot of this. Well, they do, and they did, but it ended up meaning something to recruits. So recruits got it in their head, well, if I'm going to be 6'7", 320 pounds, I'm probably going to go to the SEC. And that's probably what's best for me and my brand of individual, and that's before NIL. But Oklahoma State, I think, is a pretty good case study there. Gundy is a legend. It took Mike Gundy a considerable amount of time to get an exorbitant amount of 300-pound dudes. He's talked about it. We've talked about it. And now it's a different scenario. You go all across the two deep on the O-line, D-line, and you see countless dudes that are 300 pounds. And Gundy said it himself. Again, it took Oklahoma State a long time to get those guys. Well, now we're getting those guys. From a size perspective, if you have a really good strength and conditioning program, and we know that Rob Glass is a legend. It's one of the reasons why he's the only $1 million strength coach in America, because he's worth every daggone penny. This season is a pretty good indication of that. Gundy said in an interview the other day that this is 18 years as the head man in Stillwater, Oklahoma, and this group was top 3 all-time in Oklahoma State history in production in the offseason as far as gaining weight. So if you take the weight room seriously, that's a pretty good indication of what you're going to have from a mental maturity standpoint as a team. If you like the leadership you have on the team, you're probably going to be pretty daggone successful. Does it just rely on the seniority? Not necessarily, because of the transfer market. Alan Bowman, Oklahoma State quarterback, did very, very good at Texas Tech, went through multiple injuries, didn't really get to play much at Michigan. All those years in different systems, It's going to help with the maturation process. The mental makeup of that individual is going to be different than an 18-year-old. Do you have 18-year-olds that are ready to rock and roll at 4:30 every morning, go to work, go to war type of mentality? Yeah, you do. But it's not typical. Whenever a guy is 24, 25, that cerebral cortex gets a little bit more built up and you understand things a little bit better. We're not as ridiculous. We don't act quite as stupid. As men, we do a lot of dumb stuff. It takes us a while to understand it, which is, again, why I think BYU is going to continually be a problem. Their shift is going to have to come a little bit in recruiting. They're going to have to handle it a little bit differently than previously, but they are going to be good. I would like to see them kind of dethrone any misconceptions that Utah has about coming into the league. I've said it before. I really will find it very humorous if Utah comes out week 1, beats Florida, just to turn around and lose to Baylor in week 2. You know, there's been some people throwing around the idea that part of Baylor's success of winning a Big 12 title 2 years ago was because of Joey McGuire. Partially why he has a lot of momentum right now in Lubbock, Texas. His connections in the state of Texas, especially from the high school perspective, cannot be undersold or undervalued. Texas Tech's going to be a problem, which is, again, to put a nice little bow on this thing before we skedaddle on out of here. Thank you all for tuning in today to make this a Sunday listen. Don't go live all that often. I actually thoroughly do enjoy going live just because of the way that the content goes. I think it flows a little bit differently, and you don't have to worry about as much stuff. Honestly, with live, you kind of just to get out here. Retention of information is important. Being able to have a good dialogue, I think, is important, but being able to present it to you guys and make it at least half-ass fun is also important. F-Tech, huh? How about that? All right, well, see, again, we can kickstart this little rivalry thing we got going. But, yeah, we'll see. If it's true that Joe McGuire was the reason Baylor was successful and it wasn't as much on Dave Aranda, this season will be telling. But for all the Big 12 country out there, I think most of us are going to be rooting for Baylor, unless you're from the new Pac-12 side of things coming in. Utah, I hope they continue to bump their gums, but just like it's not great, right, for Texas or OU to win the conference this year. It wouldn't be great for USC to win. It wouldn't be great for Utah to win if you're part of the other 3 coming into the conference. All right, y'all. I think that we're going to keep it pretty simplistic. Oh, by the way, thanks to all the regulars out there. I see a lot of you on here. Love having you guys hop on board. You could be anywhere. It's a big deal that you stop in here. We're almost at 1,000 subs, so we'll do another live show kind of when we hit that mark. And then hold on, let me see. I don't even know what we're at. We got to be close. I think we're close. 997, 990. Yeah, we're close. All right, so we'll go live. We'll go live again probably this week just because it's fun. What up, Kirby? 2024 is going to be fire. 2023 is going to be that good too, buddy. Come on. I cannot stress enough how you got to hammer the over. All right. Do it with FanDuel. Not that the other places are fine as well, but FanDuel's kind of where it's at. Yeah, 2024 is going to be fun, man. And yeah, I see your boy getting swole, right? That conversion, defense only, about to wreck shop. Landon Cleveland, we went talking about recruiting real quick. See what you done did. You put in a comment. We get to go for a little bit longer. But, you know, if people are stressing out about recruiting, I wouldn't worry so much because this recruiting class is a little bit different. Usually your quarterback is the guy that's out there, you know, vouching for this class and this school and this university and this and that and the other. We have the benefit of it being some defensive guys that absolutely get offers from other places on a regular basis. It's not going to change. It's not going to go anywhere, but there's a difference in being committed, you know, now more than ever. The word commitment doesn't mean as much as it used to. But I do think that this is a good time for Oklahoma State to prove that doesn't always have to be the case. David Kabongo is a really good example of that. Obviously, Gunnar Wilson's a very good example of that. And then you have somebody like Landon Cleveland who's willing to grab that flag of we're going to be good. You're going to want to jump on this ride, so you might as well get in now while the getting is good. I cannot wait for this season. I think this season is going to set whoever up. Again, it doesn't have to be Oklahoma State. Obviously, that would be great for us, right? It'd be great for the brand. But whoever plays in Arlington this year is positioning themselves in the new Big 12. Like, if I'm Kansas State or TCU, really, I am chomping at the bit to get back in Arlington. I think that does a lot as far as solidification of who's going to be one of the front runners moving in. Because as much crap as we want to talk on Utah, they are going to be good. I have been a proponent of Arizona getting in this conference for some time now because I do believe in Jedd Fisch. I do believe in what they're doing. I think Arizona is before all of this Big 12 stuff, I thought Arizona was putting themselves in a position to get it figured out. Arizona State, well, yeah, they've got their guy. Dillingham is their guy. He's their version of Gundy, right? He's from that area, went to a local high school in that area, right? Went to Arizona State. This is his dream job. This is what he's always wanted to do. This is where he's always wanted to be. And then now you have the added benefit of being the Big 12. They will see the difference between the Big 12 and the Pac-12. Maybe they don't all see it now. Arizona State's AD is a babbling buffoon. I think we can all see that. That guy probably was one of the main proponents of them almost screwing the pooch here, almost screwing themselves here with as much as he talks. He should probably not talk. Right? In the Pac-12, I know you saw it from George Kliavkoff. They promote this, we're going to bump our gums with no substance behind it type of situation. But I hope George Kliavkoff is a good person to study when you're thinking of what not to do. Same with John Consano. Same with the Monty dude. Same with our poor guy, Tony Altimore. The Pac did this to themselves. It's hard to feel too bad. I'm happy with the teams we got, right? I would have loved the sanctimonious nature of Utah to not exactly be involved, but they are because it's good for the conference. And realistically, again, we talked about it on the show yesterday, if they're going to be the heel, let them be the heel. If they want to come in, bumping their chest, saying that they're going to win the conference immediately from day one, let them do it. Let them beat their chest because that means every loss is going to mean a little bit more. As I say in the SEC, it just means more, right? Well, Utah and Arizona State even, can you imagine how fun it's going to be to watch Arizona State go to Morgantown, West Virginia? If you don't know, their AD or president threw a little bit of shade. It was the AD. The AD for Arizona State made a comment about how he ain't going to Morgantown. Let the couch burning begin. And hopefully that's on the very first schedule. I also hope that Utah is on our first schedule. And I don't care if we got to go to Utah. They come to Stillwater. I don't give a hoot. Hell, we should go to Provo next year since BYU's got to come to Stillwater this year. Make it a twofer. Give us both of them back to back. We'll just make it a little trip. All right, y'all. Texas Tech's going to be pretty good. No question. Absolutely. If they stay healthy, key spots. Yeah. And you know Joey McGuire knows that as well, right? There's going to be a race to build the two deep. Fortunately, anybody can do that nowadays with the transfer market, right? If you manage it well, I mean, you're going to have some guys that come up through the program because that's your concrete, that's your foundation, that's the backbone of what you're going to be able to accomplish. But Mel Tucker proved it 2 years ago at Michigan State. You can lose 20, 30 guys and replace them and instantaneously get better. I think when you cross the bridge of 40, 45, 50 guys, that's when it gets a little tricky. I do think Colorado is going to be more competitive this year than some people believe. I think Deion Sanders is a better coach than some people are trying to give him credit for. Colorado will be prepared. Will they be outmatched? Yes, right? A decent chunk of the season, they will be. But They will out prepare some people. They will out speed some people. I don't know if they'll out physical a whole lot of people, but somebody. I'm excited for the teams that we have. I'm excited for the next round because this ain't done. There is no reason for ESPN or Fox to have a lot of negotiation conversations with the ACC. It's a sweetheart deal, right? They get the TV networks, they get to put on Clemson and Florida State and Miami and North Carolina State and North Carolina and Louisville. They get to put them on the cheap. They're not magically going to go to the ACC and be like, hey, you're in trouble, all right? Let us pay you more money for the product that you provide. Nah. So again, we've been talking on this program for months about how this Mega 3, you've heard about the Mega 2, Mega 2, Mega 2, Mega 2. I never saw that as a viable reality. There's too much politicking that goes on in this beautiful game that we all love. There's too much politicking going on for it to dissipate to that level, right? There's 60, 65, you could probably argue 68 quality programs across the country that deserve to have this national spotlight. But there's some that don't. And when you look at the ACC, there's just not always the greatest products available. But it's less about the brands that you bring in and more about security. If you know it's going, whether you think it's going Mega 2, Mega 3, no matter your stance, this is about positioning yourselves for some sort of power, for some sort of leverage. The Big 12 has that. The ACC has none. And again, I don't see ESPN coming them with extra money and say, hey, you have an inferior product, okay? You've got these conferences moving towards 16, 18, 20 teams. We want to pay you more money. It ain't going to happen. So the ACC is going to have to figure it out for themselves. And if Florida State, right, just like Colorado was the domino on this side of it, that's not even true. Let's face facts, ladies and gentlemen. The domino was USC, UCLA. The real domino was OU, Texas. But when you look at the next domino, it is likely going to be Florida State. If Florida State feels that confidently that they can get out of their grant and rights deal, whether it be lawsuits, doesn't matter. If they can come up with $600 million, and we all know they can, if Boone Pickens has 365, you know they have donors that have 600 all day, every day. It's going to happen. Florida State's going to get out of the daggone deal. And when that happens, the ACC schools are going to see the writing on the wall. So we're not done. I think we end up at 20. I think 20 is the magical number. But here's the irony. If you get the Big 12 at 20, the Big 10 at 20, the SEC at 20, then you still have to have the conversation about, well, what about, there's going to be some teams that are left on the other side of the door, like a Washington State, like an Oregon State, like a Virginia, that you could argue, they need a shot. They deserve a shot. They should get something. So it is going to get interesting. But if you are one of those teams and you watched what happened with the Pac, now is the time to position yourself moving forward. Just like UCF was able to do. Just like Cincinnati was able to do. Houston even. BYU was already ready. I think everybody knows that. But if you're in the ACC or you're one of those Tulane, SMU type of places, I think maybe even in Memphis, get yourself put in that position and do it pretty daggone quick. There's still enough meat on the bone. There's a couple different conferences that have some more room to grow. I would almost say that the Big Ten's pretty tapped out. But you're talking about Florida State, Clemson, Miami, North Carolina. Those are brands that people aren't just going to let completely go to waste. But there are brands that they are. You're watching it with the Pac-12 right now. So if you're a fan of ACC, start writing your presidents and your ADs and your chancellors and whatnot now. Start getting a hold of your donors and your boosters now. You need to be the next UCF. I think Boise State's a perfect example. I think Boise State gets left out in the cold from here to the end of Kingdom Come, unless they stop operating like a high school and having a blue Smurf turf and all this other stuff. It was cute 15 years ago, 10 years ago, whatever it was. Like, it was cool. It was a good idea. Got eyeballs. But if you're a legitimate enough product, and I would say most people think Boise State is, then operate like one. Put yourself in a position to be part of the cool kid club moving forward. Don't get left out in the cold like some of these schools. All righty, y'all. That's all we got for this one. I appreciate you. And yeah, I love you. God bless. Go Pokes. Appreciate you tuning in, because you could go anywhere, be anywhere, watch anywhere, whatever, all of that fun jazz. We're going to start going live weekly. All righty, y'all. Later, taters.